win tonight. Just a few moments ago, for the Makkal movement in Tamil Nadu, the government has finally given its nod to the ordinance on Jallikattu. The Law Minister Ravishankar Prasad has approved and signed the ordinance. We understand with minor changes. This ordinance has been drafted by the Tamil Nadu government. Earlier in the day, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Panneerselvam submitted the draft ordinance to the centre. Now the ordinance will be sent to the President for final approval, and it depends on his signature whether the ban is lifted. Now, the move comes as a relief for pro-Jallikattu supporters who have gathered in protest of that ban of the bull taming sport from Madurai to Chennai. We've been tracking this for the last several days as the numbers began to swell heavily in Chennai on the beach where these people had gathered. A lot of them were very young, a lot of them were college students. Over the last couple of days, that story really picked up steam. We saw trains getting cancelled in the state of Tamil Nadu. The protests spread to across the world. People in Melbourne and London and Mumbai and Delhi and Bangalore all joined the protest, asking for that ban to be removed completely. Panneerselvam met with the Prime Minister and with the PMO, submitted an ordinance. We've seen a great deal of deliberation. The Prime Minister's office put out a tweet 2 days ago, first saying that the matter is sub judice. But now we understand, the footage that you're seeing on your screen, that the Law Minister has in fact approved the ordinance with minor changes. We don't know what those minor changes are, but one assumes from reports that we're hearing that the minor changes have to do with the rules of the sport and maintaining a certain set of boundaries as far as cruelty to animals are concerned. And then the ban will be lifted. It has to do with framework of rules for the sport. That's what we understand. Those are the minor changes. But other than that, the ordinance has now been passed to the President's office, and the President now has to sign it in order for that ban to be lifted. Over the last couple of days, several big celebrities in Tamil Nadu have joined the movement. We understood A.R. Raman fasted for the day. Rajinikanth also joined the protest and supported the students who were protesting. So did Kamal Hassan. So there was a large, almost unanimous support for the ban to be lifted in Tamil Nadu. And now we understand that the Chief Minister, that the Prime Minister's office and the central government have also seen that they need to now go with the people's choice. There we see it, that's the superstar Rajinikanth getting out of his car in support of the Makkal movement. This happened earlier today. He basically, and what was also very clear about this entire protest was it was extremely peaceful. All of the stars from Tamil Nadu who joined the protest insisted that the protest remain peaceful. That's Kamal Hassan that you're seeing on your screen, who joined the protest this morning as well. Huge move for all of these, for all of those who've been protesting, camped out on that beach for the last couple of days in Chennai. There's going to be a lot of celebration. We'll bring you footage of that celebration as it's coming in right now to our network. But let me introduce our guest this evening. Kailash Vasdev is a senior advocate. Tanveer Ahmed, the national spokesperson of the JDS. We also have Naresh Kadyan. He's the commissioner of Bharat Scouts. He's an animal activist, and AP Prijesh is a civil rights activist, all of whom join us right now. Kailash, Vasdev, I'm going to come to you first on the legal angle in all of this. There was a lot of debate. We heard the Prime Minister's office put out a tweet that said the matter is sub judice. Although the Prime Minister does give his support to the state of Tamil Nadu, the matter is sub judice, meaning that we are just going to have to wait for the Supreme Court's decision. But it seems now like the ordinance will move forward. Tell us legally, has this ever happened before? And is this a dangerous precedent to set? How are you reading this entire movement?
Yes. Insofar as the ordinance is concerned, it has been more often than not, many times ordinances have been passed or acts have been passed to nullify a judgment of the Supreme Court. There are some parameters in which these acts have to be passed, because you're going to set aside the judgment of the Supreme Court and validate an act which has been negated by the court. In doing that, there are certain areas which have to be kept in mind, that you should not reenact the entire act as it stood, but you must have it done in a manner that it deals with the Supreme Court judgment and the rights which you seek to do. In economic matters, acts have been struck down by the court and they have been repassed by legislation that is called validation acts. In this case also, a validation act was expected because there was a mass movement in Tamil Nadu, as also supported by the community for the purposes of the Jallikattu. Their view is that this is not really an action which harms the animals, but is a sport or by way of a tradition which has continued for 5,000 years. The government has accepted the view of the people of Tamil Nadu and has proposed an ordinance. I see nothing wrong about it. The situation as it unfolds will now be for the discretion of the President whether to pass or not to pass the ordinance, that is to sign it or not to sign it, because that's a matter which the President has to decide in his absolute power. Under normal circumstances, the President does not easily say no to the signing of an ordinance if the House is not in session. When the House is in session, that is Parliament is in session, it becomes a totally different picture. At this point of time, the entire situation is the Prime Minister's office, that is the Government of India, has recommended that an ordinance be passed. It has been sent to the President for signatures, and under normal circumstances, this being an act which will be coming into force, supported by the will of the people of Tamil Nadu, I see no reason why the ordinance should not come.
See no reason why the ordinance should not come. I want to bring in Naresh Kadyan here. Naresh, we understand also that some of the reports coming in says PETA will now consider what the next steps are, whether they want to oppose this or take any sort of legal route. But what are your reactions to what we're hearing, Naresh, that this ordinance now goes to the President? It's in all likelihood will be signed. So as an animal rights activist who's been fighting against the movement so far, what is your reaction to this evening's developments?
You see, all persons are fighting against the butchers lobby, and this is the defeat of a butchers lobby, and all the persons, and you claim to be protesters, they are animal rights activists, all are sitting at Marina Beach, they are animal rights activists, and all the, and you said one PETA and all this, they all are a tout of butchers. They support butchering. Where are the animals went? Where is the status report of these animals? Why the cruelty? AWBI depend upon the only PETA report. PETA never recognized by the Animal Welfare Board of India. Why the foreigner lady, the chief functionary of PETA, why she is a co-opted member of AWBI? There are so many things. HSI, they all are paid from the butchers. There is a conspiracy against our native bulls. Previously, I was opposing Jallikattu when I demand AWBI the status report about the animals and the persons engaged in the event. AWBI totally failed, and this is a failure of Animal Welfare Board of India, because AWBI's motive is why unnecessary pain and suffering.
Now, Naresh Kadyan, you've changed your mind. You are now for Jallikattu. Is that what you're saying, that you're now for the sport, that you've changed your mind?
You see, as per section 11, subsection 3 of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, that allowed taming practice, and Jallikattu is one kind of taming practice that is allowed under law.
Okay, so you're saying it's allowed under law and you support it. Naresh Kadyan, they're changing his stand. Tanveer Ahmed, you've been for Jallikattu for the beginning, so it's a big win here. And I think there's a larger thing that we have to look at. The way the people came together in Tamil Nadu, across all lines, across all, all religions, it was just about the pride of the people. They said, we're going to come together peacefully and we're going to stay on this beach until we get what we want. A very large modern day people movement.
Exactly, it was a very, very large modern day movement. The country, the people who forget to promote, protect and propagate their culture, they fail to exist. I would say that it is a great movement, a great Dravidian sport which is existing from past 1,500 years of history we have with this sport. And the bulls which are there competing in Jallikattu are the bull which are taken care best in the world. I would say that, no harm to the bull is done. I, being a wrestler myself, I've been part of a couple of sports like this. I would just tell you that there is absolutely no harm. This is a conspiracy from a lot of fashionable animal rights activists who want to get some cheap fame, who want to just get some name, and who are protesting for no reason. And I would say that it is a huge success not only for people's movement of Tamil Nadu, it is for the culture, tradition which is existing in this country, which is a tribal culture for thousands of years. I think right now we would request the President of India to sign the documentation immediately and give a success to the people's movement of Makkal movement in Tamil Nadu, and send a precedent that we would stand for the culture of this country, tradition of this country.
AP Prijesh, are you also looking forward right now to the President signing that ordinance?
Exactly. The thing is, the first question which I would like to raise is the system or the state or the judiciary is interfering in tradition, which is unacceptable. Because we are living in a diversified economy, we have various cultural custom value systems. So the judiciary or the state or the system, why interfere into tradition?
It's fair, you know, AP Prijesh, I don't think it's fair to say that the judiciary is interfering, and I'll go back to Kailash Vasdev with this. The judiciary was responding to a PIL that it had admitted into court. So would you say it's fair to say interfering, Kailash Vasdev?
No. I would not. It was an order passed on contest. Everybody was heard. If it was a unilateral order without anybody being present, it is different. But here is a matter where the animals board was heard, PETA was heard, people were heard. In addition to that, there were reports which were called for. They were all examined in 2011. The reports came in 2013. Based on that, the Supreme Court proceeded to judgment in 2014. It would be very wrong to say that the Supreme Court interfered. That's very strong language for the court. I would request a panelist to be a little more circumspect in what they have to say. Yes, you may disagree with what the court says, but please don't say it interfered. It has exercised its powers on hearing all parties. And after it was petitioned to look into this matter.
All right. I also want to bring in Prashanth, who's the senior campaign manager of
the situation of courts.
Right. Just give me 1 second, Mr. Vasdev. Prashanth is a senior campaign manager of the Animal Rights Federation. Prashanth?
Yes.
We see here now the Law Minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, has signed the ordinance and it has moved to the President. What is your reaction to that?
It is. We consider it as being very outrageous and ad hoc and appeasing tactic by the central government to basically satisfy the mobs and whatever is being called as the Makkal movement. Similarly, in 2016, the government had brought in a notification which was struck down in the Supreme Court. So we don't understand these repeated half-hearted attempts at reinstating an inherently cruel sport which the Supreme Court has in 2014 as well as in 2016 upheld. So we are outraged by this, and we will definitely challenge this in court.
So when you say, what do you mean by avenge this in court, Prashanth?
We will petition the Supreme Court against this ordinance, and I'm sure it will be struck down again, like the Supreme Court has exhibited wisdom and the recognition of what the constitutional provisions are.
Okay, I want our panelists to respond to this. Tanveer Ahmed, you were shaking your head, but what Prashanth is saying is that he reads this as a populist move by the government to appease the people who are protesting, and it's a dangerous thing to happen if it happens on a regular basis. Tanveer Ahmed.
See, the way Prashanth is saying that it is a mob movement, I think I have a very huge contention on this. This is a sport which is there existing. I want Prashanth to bring data, if at all he has any. How many bulls have really lost their life? What happened? Do they have any data? Have they presented anything? Prashanth, please, I really understand why you guys are doing this. This is a part of a very, very large conspiracy for hitting our culture, our tradition.
No culture or tradition. If
it is a mob, the chief minister of the state would have not gone there to meet the prime minister of the country. Please hold on to your words. You cannot really call it as mob.
He wants to gather votes. Bulls are not voting. These bulls are being.
What does Kamala Hassan has to do on it? Does Kamala Hassan needs any vote? Does A.R. Rahman need any vote? These engineers, the scientists who are standing on Marina Beach, Mr. Prashanth, this is exactly the language. The fashionable animal rights activists need to really check on this. This is a win against...
Sir, if you look at our work, there's nothing really fashionable about it. No one is a film star here. We are all fighting for the rights of the animals which the Constitution has guaranteed.
What rights are you talking about?
Okay.
What rights are you talking about? Do you have any data? How many animals have really lost their life?
What we have data. We have data about thousands of people being injured. Forget animals. If you are not sympathetic to the cause of
people who are
animals.
participating in the sport have absolutely no problem about it.
Okay,
Do you know you have to give one second, Faye. You have to give a letter to the collector 30 days prior. The collector is going to give you a certificate whether you are fit enough to participate in the sport. What is Mr. Prashanth talking about? Thousands of people being injured. Mr. Prashanth absolutely has no idea, no data. It is just a fashionable presentation.
Tanveer Ahmed, let him answer.
Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, if you recall, the Nagaraja judgment came as the result of the petition which was filed by a father who had lost a son, who was not even participating in the sport. He was an artist in the crowd. He was sketching the sport, and thousands of human lives have lost. And you're saying that doesn't matter to you. At the same time, there have been recorded video and photographic evidence of bulls being tortured, inhumanly treated, and the PCA Act clearly says that you can't do it. It's illegal to do it, and the Supreme Court even allowed the conduct of the Jallikattu events according to the Tamil Nadu Jallikattu Regulation Act for 5 years.
Right.
Even then the bulls were tortured, and even only after that the court took notice of the fact that the sport cannot be held without cruelty, and then imposed the ban on it.
Well, let me bring Kailash Vasdev into this. Tanveer Ahmed, 1 second. Kailash Vasdev, respond to the fact that Prashanth first of all says that this is a populist move to win votes from the central government, and that they will take this up from the Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organization in Supreme Court. Definitely. One more time.
See, the fact is this. If it's a populist move or otherwise, it's a discretion of government. If the government feels that a particular action or a particular judgment needs to be set aside, they can choose to do so. Saying that it is a populist movement, the setting aside of the Jallikattu festival by itself was at the behest of a group of people who are animal rights lovers, where the animals themselves don't actually sustain much injury, because after the Jallikattu is over, it is these animals who are protected and brought up once again. Very unlike the sports and the bulls in the other countries, where bulls are killed in the arenas. Here is a situation. The other day I did mention about Spain. Spain Parliament said that the functions of the celebrations with bulls have been set aside. The Supreme Court set aside the order of Parliament. Here we have an inverse. Here we have a situation where the government said that no, it should continue because that is what the people have been doing for thousands of years. It's an old tradition, and we see no reason why the Supreme Court judgment should be allowed to stand in the way of people doing what they want. These are cultural matters. Coming back to your specific question, it is a matter which has to be now dealt with by government. It is not a populist movement. It is a movement which has started and built up over time. 2014 was one situation, 15 is one, 16 an act, another notice set of notifications. Now you're coming down to an act being passed for the purposes of celebrating Pongal at a point where everybody does it in a traditional manner. So therefore, I'm not going to turn around and say it's a populist move. It's a discretion exercised by government in its judgment that this should be allowed to continue. Because you see, please look at it this way, in 96, this was discontinued in in Goa by an order of the High Court. Even today, it is followed in the breach. The function of bullfighting goes on in Goa. You have not been able to stop it. Here is a movement where they say that the animals are getting injured. Factually, it is the human beings who get injured because they take a risk in participating in a sport which is a challenge. In any sport which is a challenge, you are bound to sustain injuries. Then if a sport doesn't have a challenge, there is no point in participating. Motorcycle racing, car racing, wrestling, boxing, all these have their fallouts.
car
How
racing.
can you
because,
possibly
you know,
turn
Prashanth,
around
you want to
and say that the
respond
man
to
is
that,
taking a
Prashanth?
risk? He's taking it.
Yes, I definitely want to. I'm considering it very absurd that it's being likened to motorcycle racing and car racing because animals are not injured, and I completely disagree that animals sustain only minor injuries and they're taken care of later. The very conduct of the so-called sport it guarantees that the bulls are mistreated, ill-treated in the pen before being let out to run amok on the crowd, where they are again causing grievous injuries to the people. So this is sort of likening to the motorsport, etc., is very absurd, and this is we shouldn't stoop down to that level.
Well, I also want to bring in Prijesh. Prijesh, there are a lot of, and I want someone to explain this to the rest of the country.
From the risk factor, I'm not comparing it to other sports.
From the point of view of the people of Tamil Nadu, explain this to the rest of the country as to how that bull is raised, how the bull is treated, and what happens during that actual festival, and why is it so important to the people of the state?
And after the festival also.
And after the festival also. Prijesh? Right, I'm not sure if Prijesh can hear me.
I'm come again.
Okay, Jesma, who filed that is patched in with us right now on the phone line. What are your reactions to what we are hearing tonight on the fact that the law minister has in fact signed this ordinance?
As in, our reaction is just that it seems like what's being done is a fraud on the Constitution.
Yes.
Because what they had to do was use the legislative process. But the Tamil Nadu Assembly is meeting on Monday, and we just don't understand as to when the Assembly is meeting on Monday, why are they pushing through an ordinance? As in, if the absolute right way to do this would have been to bring in an act, if that's what wanted to do. As in, using the route of an ordinance is definitely a fraud on the Constitution and an overreach of the executive.
Well, to be fair, NV Jesma, to be fair, from the Animal Welfare Board of India, who joins us on the phone line right now, the ordinance also seemed like the need of the day because of the scale of the protests that the governments were dealing with and the fact that it was spreading to the rest of the country.
Right. I understand, and I think that I have, as I've said before, I have pretty high regards to the people who are protesting because it's their fundamental right to protest. But it's just that it's a wrong precedent to be set, as in, if every single time there is an order that is passed by the Supreme Court and people are offended by it for whatever reason, and if democratic process is shortcut, and if the constitutional process is shortcut and ordinance are brought in, then we are actually, it's a slippery slope and we're entering into a scary time. There is a process to do it. There is an act, if an act has to be brought in, then it has to pass through the assemblies. And the Tamil Nadu Assembly has been convened on Tuesday. I just don't see why do you want to shortcut a constitutional process.
All right. I'm going back to Kailash Vasdev to very quickly answer this question, because after that we have Apsara Reddy, member of the AIDMK, who's joining us. Kailash Vasdev, this whole argument that why was an ordinance used, that it is the government should not be superseding the Supreme Court.
The ordinance is. I answered that in the first go, that if the government wants to supersede a judgment of the court, it can choose to do so anytime. It has done so on plenty of occasions. I can recount 17 cases right now where this has happened. On the second issue as to why are you taking the ordinance route and not going through the legislative process, legislative process takes time. You will frame an act, you will debate it in the assembly, you will possibly have it passed by the governor. So that whole process takes time. At this point of time, the urgency, it seems, what I understand, is that immediately after the Pongal, the functioning of Jallikattu becomes a matter of great pride. And that time is going to be running out very shortly. Therefore, the need for the ordinance to come in as soon as possible. I see no reason why you should take the view that because the assembly will assemble, then a deliberation will take place, then an act will be passed. See, by then, the heat of the moment is over.
Yes.
At this point of time, the need is that everybody wants this Jallikattu to continue. If it wants it to continue and the government thinks it appropriate, it is appropriate for the government to pass an ordinance. If they want to refer it back, the president can always say, go to the state assembly So you see that's a very odd situation.
All right.
You can't compare ordinance making power with legislative power. They are two different areas.
All right. And Kailash, Vasdev, they're explaining why the ordinance was used instead of an act, and we know how much time that takes. Afsara Reddy joins us right now. She's a member of the AIDMK of Tamil Nadu. Ma'am, thank you for joining us. Your message right now to the people of Tamil Nadu who've protested, and now it seems like the protest has been a success.
It's a day of celebration for us at AIDMK. I think all of us in Tamil Nadu are celebrating the people's movement, and I think for the first time, the law and order has been fantastic with such a large movement, apart from a few unrest situations created by opposition parties and coloring it with their party flags. But by and large, today is a day of celebration because the government has acted swiftly and quite conscientiously and very resolutely with lots of dignity. And they have always constantly lobbied for this over the many years. And DMK was the party which included the animal into the Cruelty Act, and I think our former Chief Minister, our beloved Purachi Thalavi Amma, actually made multiple representations to the centre. And today, again, as an emergency step, our Chief Minister has acted swiftly, and everybody is talking about why so long. It's only been 3 days. I think that there's a lot of strategy and legalities involved which were considered, and the action was taken, and I think the people of Tamil Nadu are very happy.
The people of Tamil Nadu are very happy. I know Prashanth is still on the phone line with us. And
yes.
Prashanth, you know, I want you to respond to another thing that was said on the show before you joined us, which is Naresh Kadyan, who is an animal rights activist, started off by disagreeing, with Jallikattu. He didn't want it. He's changed his mind. Naresh, Prashanth is on the phone line. You've heard him. The fact that he still believes the ban should stay. Respond to him, Naresh.
You please ask Mr. the FIAPO person, why animals are treated as a goods? Is there any question? Is there any answer? Animals are treated as goods in India. Why these people, so-called activists, are not behind to change the definition of goods? What about the camel transportation rules? Nothing. Only they are behind the Jallikattu and the rural sport. These kind of having birth in AWBI, I always oppose all the people. And what the FIAPO is, FIAPO only selected persons are holding FIAPO. I am also running NGO. They always approach me to be part of FIAPO. I never be a part of FIAPO.
Why not?
Two or three persons.
Do not make baseless comments like that. And you very well know that cockfighting has been banned, and there is a very clear transportation rules which govern the transportation of all animals, and which prevents them from being treated as goods. So I don't know. I mean, like, you are making very misinformed statements, and I would also like to respond to the earlier person's comment saying that the people of Tamil Nadu have won. I feel it's a very sad moment for Tamil Nadu people and the Makkal movement as well, because they are being blatantly misled by the state and the central government in bringing in this ordinance. And eventually it is, the Supreme Court and the law of the land will stand, and it will see the same fate as the previous notification and the Tamil Nadu regulation of Jallikattu Act. So instead of, like Jaisima was saying, instead of going the constitutional way,
Prashanth, how do you then explain the large numbers of people who came out How do you explain the large number of people who came out to protest? It was obviously a peaceful protest. They were not being coerced. There was no leader of that movement. So if you're saying that they were being misled and misused, how do we explain the protest then?
See, the information that was given, and this has been discussed in multiple debates earlier, that Jallikattu is held in only specific districts of Tamil Nadu, and people who are coming out have sadly been misinformed that it is Tamil Pride, and what is Tamil Pride is the Pongal festival, and revering the cattle and the livestock as their family. I agree with that, and no one is contesting the conduct of the festival itself and revering the livestock, but to conduct this so-called sport which inherently includes cruelty and poking and injuring and killing the animals is really not part of any culture, let alone Tamil culture, which has displayed great compassion and sympathy to animals.
Apsara Reddy, ma'am, do you want to respond to that?
I think, yes. I think today is a day of celebration in Tamil Nadu and all the regulations will be in place. There won't be any cruelty to animals. The law and order has been peaceful. The students' movement has gained such large, widespread appreciation. All these myopic animal activists should do something about gambling, about horse racing, about poultry farms, about artificial insemination at dairy farms.
Fighting has been banned.
Instead of doing all of that, they are trying to steal the cultural ethos of the Tamil people. I think that is absolutely absurd to hit out at the rural communities. The cow and the bull belong in rural communities and our rural economies, and it's very urban and very elitist to tell them to give up this 5,000-year-old culture. Why don't you do something about other issues plaguing our society today, sir?
Madam, we are doing what is necessary with the other, forms of abuse of animals as well. My colleagues and us have worked actively to bring in regulation for example, the horse carriages in Bombay, and the Hornbill Festival, for example, and the cockfighting in Andhra Pradesh. So these issues are being dealt with, and in the realm of the Constitution and what the Constitution allows for the welfare of animals, for the protection of animals. And you saying that...
Sir, I'd also like to remind you, Sir, I'd like to remind you about the Biodiversity Convention, which was signed in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, which says such cultural practices must continue with regulations in place. See, if our government is very capable...
Madam, are you saying that it is your cultural practice to torture bulls, which has clearly been proven by not AWBI, not
there is no torture,
but Supreme Court nominated committee?
In fact, Afsar
after
Reddy,
the regulations came into place, yes.
Afsar Reddy, I do understand that while it's a night of celebration in Tamil Nadu, there are people across the country, this is a national channel, people across the country who don't understand why this sport brought the citizens of Chennai out in these large numbers, why people feel so strongly about a rural sport. I want you to just take a few minutes to explain to the rest of our audience in the rest of the country why Jallikattu is so important to the people of Chennai and why is it part of Tamil pride.
Jallikattu has been in our culture from the Sangam history, from the Sangam period from 500 BC, and the rural communities, revere the cows and the bulls, and they raise these bulls in their own home, and they raise them to prevent them from extinction. And I think to tell them not to celebrate this sport because of an urban elitist lobbying against this sport without understanding the depth and the connect with the sport, I think has angered people. I think it's also lashing out at Tamil identity, and people felt it was also too many things came too quickly, like the Pongal holiday being cancelled and then reinstated, and then also Kaveri water being denied to Tamil Nadu. I think the farmer community was very angered, and this was the last straw.
So there was more. You are telling us that there was more to this protest than just the sport. That it was emotions that have been running high for a while.
I think for the farming community be told to change their their lifestyle or their socio-economic culture, or to tell them to get rid of their cultural ethos by a Supreme Court or by somebody sitting in the center or by myopic animal rights activists, of course hits very deep, because I feel we as Tamil people consider this sport very dear to us. It's part of every home in rural communities.
Afsar Reddy,
no one. I would like to respond.
No, 1 second, Prashanth. I will come to you. I want to ask one question. Afsar Reddy, ma'am, we've heard this strain of thought through various arguments, even with the Kaveri, water dispute, and after that is it true then that the people of Tamil Nadu feel misunderstood, or feel that people in Delhi or in Mumbai or the rest of the country don't really understand the citizens of Tamil Nadu? Because a lot has been said to that effect in the last few days.
I feel we celebrate the bull, and first of all, to constantly call us as cruel citizens who torture the cow itself is an insult to us, because we embrace the bull, we embrace everything about the cattle in our communities. And I think when all other sport like for example horse racing, where horses are whipped to perform. It's an upper class sport, is happening unhindered under the very nose of the central government in most cities, metro cities. Of course it angers the Tamil people. Why are you picking on us?
Why are you picking on us? Kailash, Vasdev, there's a fair amount that's been said about the fact that...
I'm so sorry. I agree.
All right, Afsar Reddy, we appreciate...
Thank you so much.
Yes, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your time. Kailash, Vasdev, and I'll come back to you, Prashanth, on this. Kailash, Vasdev, first. A lot is being said about the fact that Supreme Court in Delhi has made a decision not really understanding the Tamil Nadu citizens or the people who live in this state. That might be unfair as well, because everybody gets a chance to be heard in court, and there's a fair amount of deliberation that happens before any decision.
I agree with you. This kind of a statement is sort of a bit brazen. I don't think you should turn around and castigate a court for taking a decision after hearing parties. And even the government of Tamil Nadu was heard. Everybody was heard. The government of India was heard. So when the court pronounced judgment in 2014, it was a very wide spectrum of people who were given a fair hearing in the courts. So therefore, to say that the Supreme Court doesn't understand Tamil Nadu, or doesn't understand Kashmir, or doesn't understand Bombay or Maharashtra or some state, I think those are statements which are more in the political arena than in the real life arena. The Supreme Court is a court for the entire country. It is not specific to Delhi or Bombay or Calcutta or any place. It looks after the affairs of the whole country. As a matter of fact, even during the Kaveri water distribution problem which took place in November, there was this kind of an outrage that the Supreme Court is not understanding the Tamil sentiment, which I think is wrong. Please don't take it that way. The Supreme Court does not belong to a state. It belongs to India.
It belongs to the whole country, and it's not a geographic thing.
Yes. Of some significance, they say that...
Right, let me just bring in Gautami. Gautami is an actor and a very strong... Kailash Vasdev, one second. Let me just bring in Gautami. Gautami is an actor and a very strong voice and a representative of the people of Tamil Nadu. Gautami, thank you for joining us. What is your reaction right now to the win for the Makkal movement that we've seen? A modern day people movement, peaceful, no leaders, no sort of coercion in any way, but the citizens of Tamil Nadu have come out in unison for what they want.
The movement in itself is probably the greatest and purest personification of people's power, people's that we have seen at least in modern times. With regards to this present victory that's been spoken of, I definitely applaud it. I applaud the progress that has been made, but I would also like to be a little bit cautious until the time that we actually have the ordinance completely passed with all the requisite signatures, and particularly the small print being read, and with these few minor, so-called minor changes that have been asked to be made.
Well, Gautami, we know that minor changes have been made. We don't know what those changes are. But what are your concerns right now as far as those changes are concerned, the modifications that have been made to the ordinance?
Well, at the moment, I'm as much in the dark as anybody else. But my concerns would be, if fine print were added in order to control certain things that would probably be essential to the entire concept of holding the sport and conducting it, or control, or so many different aspects that come into the mind. Because one thing I have to is that there has already been a very, very good amount of regulation that has been taking place for the last few years itself. The sport was previously being held. Everything was very well documented. Everything was very well supervised by the requisite government and IS officers and all the officials in place. Everything was very well monitored already. Mm-hmm. They had veterinarians on the spot, they had doctors on the spot, medical facilities, police were there, people from the local collector's office, local administration. So with these safeguards were already in place.
Right.
So with all of that having already been there, set up, which had already been, put by the state government and was being adhered to, mm-hmm. I'm just wondering what these changes might be at this point. Yeah.
Right. Prijesh, I also want to ask you this. There's been regulation in Jallikattu for a while. Obviously, there were concerns when the PIL was filed about how these regulations will actually be enforced. monitored and made sure that they're followed. So what would be the plan going forward to make sure regulations are followed in every village, in every sport, wherever it's conducted?
I don't think that there would be any issue with regulations being followed, because people of Tamil Nadu, whoever has been, practicing the sport, have already been following that and adhering to the regulations that have priorly already been forward for several years now. So there's nothing new, and there's no protest against regulation of the sport or, welfare of both the participants as well as the animals being taken care of. That's never been an issue. So I think this throws the field open to a lot of other questions which will no doubt come up in the future now. And it's probably only the surface of a larger issue. Let us wait and see. I mean, I'm no better qualified at this point than the common man to make a comment, but this is what it appears to be to me and to a lot of other people as well.
Right. Gautami, many thanks for joining us this evening. It is, of course, an evening of celebration. We're getting live visuals of the celebration on Marina Beach, where those young people had gathered for the last 3 days in protest. They are now celebrating. Naresh, Kadyan, go ahead.
Public interest litigation, they have moved PIL, but this is a personal interest litigation. Public behind Jallikattu, all are sitting at Marina Beach. This is a public show. And all the matter before the court of law, that is a personal interest litigation. A group of persons are behind this Jallikattu and rural economy, and they are supporting butchering. All the animals went to butcher house with a status report, and AWD to perform.
But what proof do you have for these allegations that you're making right now, Naresh Kadyan? I mean, what proof do you have? You're just making right now. You're making allegations, but do you have any proof?
You see the public sitting at Marina Beach in Tamil Nadu, all the people, they are public. Public should, Jallikattu should protect it, and the one person of Tamil Nadu needs Jallikattu, and the government for public not for government.
But okay. All right, Tanveer Ahmed, I'm not going to allow sweeping statements that can't be backed with any sort of proof.
I would like to point out. Point out one thing.
Yes, Prashanth. Yes, Prashanth. Go ahead.
I would like to point out one thing, that Mr. A. Nagaraja, who also petitioned the court against Jallikattu, is also public, is also a citizen of Tamil Nadu, and he's equally a citizen of Tamil Nadu as are all the people out there. So it's really absurd to say that it's not a public interest litigation.
I was also one of the party with that in Raja. I was also co-petitioner.
You seem to have changed your mind now.
I have a point to add. I have a point.
Yeah, Prijesh, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Yes, the people movement which is happening in Tamil Nadu, which is fighting for against the Jallikattu, maintains a slogan in Tamil. It's very simple. The Yarum Serta Kootamillai, the Tamilkaga Ser, which means this is not organized by a political party for his or her gain, but to highlight the values of the Tamil culture. Unfortunately, today some political parties in Tamil Nadu are exploiting this movement.
Some political parties.
They are expressing some violent.
Right, we seem to have a weak connection there. Tanveer Ahmed, there's obviously a lot going on. There is, of course, with such a large gathering of people, there will be room for politics there. There will be room for people to take advantage of the situation. But from what we've noticed, and we're looking at live footage right now coming in, from what was a very peaceful gathering of people who are now celebrating. Do you buy the argument that some of it was political, that some of it was for political gain?
It would really be sad on my part if I say that no. There might be some politicians who have tried to take some political mileage out of it. Being a politician, I would say that. But what's wrong in it? If at all you are supporting your culture, promoting your culture, and you want to stand for the culture, if your political party has a stand that you are going to stand for a particular culture, no problem in it. But however, before things go out of hand, I would just also like to say that as the people of Tamil Nadu supported Jallikattu and stood, there would be another protest which is waiting in Andhra Pradesh. A sport called Kambala, which is also, this so-called animal right activists want to stop that sport also. There is also going to be another protest which is due to happen in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. However, this so-called animal right activists need to really, and also he was saying Nagaraja who had gone there. After Mr. Nagaraja had gone to the court had directed that there should be 2 barricades and people who are watching should be behind those barricades. And Mr. Prashanth, yes, the court has also taken a strong judgment in what Mr. Nagaraja had petitioned.
Right.
However,
one second, Tanveer Ahmed, I'm going to bring in Kailash Vasdev on this. Kailash Vasdev, not too long ago, Tanveer, you and myself were having a conversation about the Kaveri water dispute, where there was a judgment from the Supreme Court, there was an order from the Supreme Court that the Karnataka government was not willing to follow.
15 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet.
Yes. And there was a lot of talk about whether or not a government can disobey an order from the Supreme Court and what that amounts to. Now we're having a conversation where it's in the opposite direction. There's a Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is hearing a case that the Tamil Nadu government was against at this point. Where does this leave us on the other argument of the Kaveri water? If there is a similar, outpouring of common sentiment, will this then become a precedent across the country? How is this different from Kaveri water?
See, I'll tell you the difference between the two. Kaveri is distribution of a national resource called water. And when you're distributing a national resource under the Interstate Rivers Dispute Act, it's a totally different area of work. There, one state was being difficult that it won't obey the orders of the court. The other state was saying, please release water, we are starving. So the court had to take into consideration a situation where one state was absolutely parched and the other was saying that we have the water but we won't give it. Even today I'm told that Tamil Nadu is having a great water crisis, and that is one of the reasons why Jallikattu is being promoted, because it will give the farmers some little bit of, it will assuage their feelings to some extent. Please do not compare an interstate water dispute with a dispute in the public interest with regard to animal rights. They are totally different areas. Coming back to the present situation, we've heard members of political parties saying it's a victory for the people of Tamil Nadu. Somebody says he's a citizen of Tamil Nadu. No, he's not a citizen of Tamil Nadu, he's a citizen of India residing in Tamil Nadu. There's a bit of a distinction. If you look at the overall perspective of the Jallikattu affair, it's a great division between people on views and ideas. A state which is largely, please correct me if I'm wrong, where people are largely vegetarian, are supporting Jallikattu. What is wrong with it as far as the people are concerned? They said, look, this is a pride. This is a situation which we have lived with for thousands of years. The animal rights activists, if they have such a great situation, now for example, during the course of the discussion, they mentioned they're going for the Hornbill Festival in Nagaland. Do you realize what you're going to do? Do you know about the Hornbill Festival in detail? It is a function for 1 week in which all cultural people of Nagaland get together in the first week of December to celebrate their culture and affairs. It is not that they're attacking the hornbills. Hornbills are birds which are respected. Please, all animal rights activists, when you make these kind of statements, consider the country and see the areas dealing with. Don't sit in a glass store, in a glass room and start criticizing everything which happens in these areas. You will ask for a great amount of difficulties, and this will surmount difficulties in the working of the court systems. The judges will have to consider issues which touch upon the ethos and culture of a people, traditions of hundreds and thousands of years, tribal ways of life and everything. Right. Please, I request
Prashanth,
let the courts do their duties to the best of their ability and don't raise issues which are wrong.
I completely disagree with the gentleman, and where there is cruelty to animals and in a way which is being practiced against what the acts and the laws and the constitution says, obviously no one is speaking for the animals, and therefore we are talking on their behalf. And in terms of customs and traditions, it's been very clearly spelled out in the Supreme Court's judgment that any custom or usage, irrespective of even any proof in their existence in pre-constitutional days, cannot be countenanced as a source of law. So that in itself is enough to
No, but Prashanth, respond to what Mr. Vasdev said. And Kailash Vasdev is a very senior lawyer at the Supreme Court. Respond to what he said about the fact that animal rights activists need to take into consideration the cultural ethos of the specific area that they're talking about.
The cultural ethos of any particular region is not what we are targeting. It is not we are going after. It is only ensuring that animals are not harmed. That is our only concern. And I don't agree when people say that it is our cultural ethos to hold cruel sports like Jallikattu, because the bulls, no one's saying don't celebrate Pongal. No one is saying don't revere the livestock and honor the cattle, which are a central part of the agrarian economy. But to conduct a sport which requires a particular animal to be agitated and tortured is what we are saying doesn't bode well for a civilized society. And that is what we are trying to address, whether it is the cockfights, whether it is the
Can I ask you a question?
Prashanth, 1 second. Kailash Vasdev,
can I ask you a question on this one?
Yes, please.
I have a question here. When you're speaking of protecting animals and their rights, you also have a provision under the Protection of Animals Act with regard to culling of animals. Culling of animals amounts to a regulation of a system. Would you take into consideration a situation where today in metropolitan towns like Jaipur, Bikaner, Delhi, Udaipur, these are all urban centers, we are having a menace with the monkeys. In the Himachal hills, farmers are unable to grow their crops because they are destroyed by the monkeys. These have come by court orders. Where regulations have been given a go by, the court says, no, please don't cull these animals, they're to be protected. Dog bites is another instance. It is animal rights activists who bring these issues to court. Would you find some kind of an answer to prevent these animals from destroying the economy of the rural people who are unable to survive today? Would you bring about a law
Prashanth, I have
which
30
permits stray
seconds.
dogs
You
to be
can-
continued without having bites?
Prashanth, I have 30 seconds. Use the 30 seconds to respond to the question that Mr. Vasdev has asked you.
Sir, you are diverting the attention to other issues which are being dealt with by us. And to answer your question,
No, I'm drawing your attention to animal right activities.
Yes, we are addressing those issues and
any question.
What the reason the monkeys are depredating on the crops of people in Himachal is because their habitats were converted into orchards. That is the biggest reason. Land use pattern change is the biggest reason for the problem of these so-called vermin species. So that is why we are advocating peaceful and non-lethal methods to for a peaceful resolution of the issue of conflict between people and animals. So as the federation, we are working on all these fronts, and you can't say that you're not doing anything, or you're completely on the side of animals being blind to rural economies and agrarian economies.
All right, I want to just quickly bring in closing statements because we have to wrap up this discussion.
Please travel those areas.
Yeah, Tanveer Ahmed, closing statements on a night when Tamil Nadu is celebrating.
I would just say that the people of Tamil Nadu should just go ahead and enjoy their festival and uphold the culture which they are enjoying from last 5,000 years. This is the time to celebrate, and this is the time, if there is any bad conduct on animals have happened in the past, to correct it and celebrate the festival in its bestest form.
All right, Kailash Vasdev, closing statements.
I agree with what he says. There's a situation, enjoy it, make the most of it, and let us all be a little more circumspect in what we do. Please don't bring in everything into the courts. Follow your cultures, follow your systems, respect each other.
Prashanth, I'll give you closing statements. Also, I want to remind you that the ordinance as it was drafted by the Tamil Nadu government, we know has been modified a little bit by the central government. We don't know what the modifications are, but we are hoping that there is a clear set of rules under which this sport needs to be conducted. It's very likely that any sort of torture or ill treatment that you're talking about of the bulls will get outlawed by the modifications in the ordinance.
If the ordinance to that effect says that only bulls can be, worshipped and, garlanded and, the best bull be, rewarded with cash prize or whatever, then, that's the only way Jallikattu or any, such a sport can be held without cruelty. If it is making them run amok and, catching them by unleashing a crowd of people on them, it definitely, like the courts and everyone has observed, it can't be done without cruelty to the animals, and I'm opining that it's an unfortunate situation in Tamil Nadu where people are being misled. So we will definitely challenge this
Prashanth
ordinance.
of the Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organization stands firm, and he says that they will approach the courts as far as this is concerned. I have to wrap this up, unfortunately. It's been an interesting discussion, and of course a night of celebration in Chennai. These are live visuals that are coming in as the protesters begin to celebrate. Of course, they're not leaving. They're going to wait for the president to sign the ordinance, and they're going to obviously want to find out what is in the ordinance and what modifications have been made by the central government. But right now, they're on the beach and they're celebrating.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.